Welcome to the Spiritual Principles Made Practical podcast. And today, what I'm really interested in and I got in my meditation is to talk about the power of the mind and mastering that power, harnessing that power consciously, right? So our mind creates everything all the time in the current instant, and that's all true. And some of that is conscious and some of that is unconscious. So the way for everything, right, to move forward is to have a greater acceptance of what's true right now. So what I know about my mind and I'm conscious of how I direct it is that at this point in time, I have the intellectual understanding that I create everything with my mind. What I am gaining more and more all the time is a conscious awareness of how I do it, right? How I do it as I'm doing it, right? So it's like um, I one of the things that comes to mind is that um, I'm and it in some ways pains me to say this, but as I listen to myself, I feel it coming up is that I choose differentiation for experiences, right? So I choose to experience anger so I can experience joy and happiness. I choose to experience frustration so I can experience ease and grace. So I choose what I could choose to like not play the mental game at all, right? To just uh, sit in eternal well-being, conscious, still, and not engage with the mind at all. And there are times when I do that, and I enjoy that, and to me that's a recharge because uh, the the power that I have, that the energy that I have, all comes from accepting what's true in ever greater degree. And what's true in ever greater degree is that I'm one with all that exists. And I'm the good, I'm the bad, I'm the everything, right? I'm the love, I'm the hate, I'm all of that. And uh, I think more and more what I'm finding is that to look at when I'm frustrated and angry as, oh, okay, I'm creating frustration and anger so that I can have a greater contrast with joy and exhilaration and happiness. I'm creating upliftment and I'm appreciating that upliftment because I'm also creating depression. And more and more I'm coming to the belief and the understanding, and some of me is resistant to this and doesn't want to accept it and isn't sure I'm right and I believe it. But as I say this to you, I'm becoming increasingly clear that I am consciously creating this differentiation in my life for the experience of the good and the bad. And I don't know, and there's a peace that comes with um, accepting that truth, that accepting the fact that I am, and then somehow or another it's not so bad when I'm angry and depressed because I understand that I'm creating that so that I can have contrast to appreciate being inspired and exhilarated. And so that's kind of helpful. But it's also helpful to remind myself that um, I can choose when to opt out of this game. I can choose at any juncture to say, you know what, I'm just gonna be still and just be at peace and experience the wholeness of being and call that good at least until um, I experience my will wanting to have more contrast and more engagement and involvement. And part of me, is still fighting and saying, no, I just want all the good without the bad. And it's like, well, there's no differentiation there. And so it's accepting what is more completely, even though in many respects I don't like it. I just want to have the good with no bad. And and it just doesn't work that way. But the more that I can accept what I'm doing and how I'm doing and why I'm doing, then the better I am. The people that just show, and I'm that way too in some ways, is that there are people that I feel have an incorrect view of me because I tend to put my best face on, when I'm interacting with other people and seeing them as separate from me and so on and so on. And in fact, the more that people are open with me and share with me and stuff, the more I see that, we've all got our pluses and minuses, our light side and our dark side. And but at the same time, it's true that we have the power to create what we want. Now, it might be contrasting, right? So if I want to make win-win thinking the dominant thinking in the world, then um, I can do that. I can create that. And part of creating that is accepting that doing that is, and there's an aspect of failure and frustration in doing that because it's looking for exhilaration in the outer world. And uh, the outer world is just a reflection of the inner world. So it's looking for joy and happiness and peace and exhilaration outside of myself where it doesn't exist, and so it's doomed to failure, and uh, and that the only piece is to opt out of the game entirely, which I don't want to do, but I can be at peace with understanding at least the game that I'm playing and what the pluses and minuses of that game are. And it makes it so much easier for me to accept and understand uh, the world that I create and what I'm creating. I think back to, Henry Ford and Sam Walton, who went, bankrupt several times and, before they achieved, their success. And it's like, well, I'm sure there was a great deal of angst and suffering and their process and in their life, where they learned and they grew and stuff, and so um, and then they experienced the fulfillment, and I think about people that have made billions of dollars and now their focus is trying to use that money to create a better world and so that they can feel a greater joy and sense of peace and happiness and accomplishment in the world. And I understand, and that no matter how much um, they uplift the world and feel that joy, um, the ultimate, there's still gonna that's is still gonna be contrast by the suffering and such, and so to me the most valuable thing is to at least at a minimum understand the game, because then at least I can take joy in playing the game, right? The game of I'm going to call it the game of duality, where I think and see other people as being separate from me, and I see good as contrast to bad, and joy in contrast to sadness, and I think of the prayer of Saint Francis, and where there's sadness, so happiness, where there's hate, so love, and it's like, yeah, it's accepting the balance, right? Or the not the balance, but the duality, right? Because love doesn't exist without hate, uh, and and peace in some ways doesn't exist without agitation, because it's being whole is being at peace, but it's not being conscious of that peace, right? It's just being what there is. So while I'm rambling a little bit, I'm feeling my way towards an understanding more fully the game of life, and the purpose of life, and so that's worthy of doing, and I feel like, quite honestly, a sense of relief at least understanding the game that I'm playing. And so I'm doing that and understanding that I'm creating duality, and it's okay. I can do that as much or as little as I choose to do it. So those are my ruminations about the power of the mind, and using that mind to create contrast, so that there is an appreciation of the experiences of life, of the exhilaration and the suffering, of the wisdom and the ignorance, of it all. And don't know how much of this is really right or wrong, but I just, I just feel it's right. I just do. So we'll go forward and see how things unfold from here. But in any event, the one thing that I am sure of is that I create my world with my mind. And the world that I want to create for myself with my mind is a world where at least I understand the game of life. And I understand that I'm using my mind to characterize what happens, that I can be angry at somebody for them suffering. I can look at their suffering as an opportunity to be at peace, and to experience the resonant power of being at peace, and watch that peace resonate peace within them. There are choices, right? I can say, there, but for the grace of God go I. I could say, it's resonating suffering in me, and I don't like that, just like they don't like it. There's lots and lots of ways that I can represent to myself what's going on with my mind. Yeah, it's up to me and how I use my mind. And I want to use my mind more and more to, even though I suspect that it's going to create greater suffering, to create greater joy and exhilaration and resonance with the truth. And then accept whatever contrast that creates, and see how all that works out. So that's what I got for today. And it's a little different, but it's cutting edge, because it's what I'm working on gaining an understanding of more completely, and a greater acceptance of more completely right now. And if you want to have a greater acceptance and understanding and mastery over your mind, I can help that with thought coaching. If that's of interest to you, you can schedule a free introductory session by going to my website, thoughtcoachingbyscott.com, and reserve a time there. Again, that's thoughtcoachingbyscott.com. Also on that website, there's links to my books, which are available on Amazon. And the book that I'm inspired to talk about today is Negativity, What We Deny Controls Us. And what it says is that we all have positive and negative thoughts, but when we have negative thoughts, we can choose not to act on them, and that gives us greater choice. And so that's the book I wanted to highlight today. All right, be well.